I think whenever you're making a business, you have to separate a product you're making from the actual business itself. So a product is something that solves some acute need. It is something that maybe even a little bit contentious, but it is something that like a user just needs in some cadence. And the business model kind of is derived from that. Like, what value extraction, or like what can you take to what is the user willing to pay for that service? So there's a lot of things around knowing who your user is, knowing what they are willing to pay, and how do you do that in like a really frictionless way, so they can consistently do that. And so there's some business models that require much different aspects than others. So a good example is something like a social media network really requires a high, what's called a K factor. It needs to have very low churn, very high spread, because you need to have vast network effects, which is part of the reason why it's really hard to start a social media. I think TikTok's basically the only one in the last 10 years that is net new. So that has like very high requirements on the virality and the stickiness of your app. But some of them may just be one-off. That's just, do you have access to something new? So maybe that's a payment rail or something like that. You don't need any network effects. You don't need that many users. Maybe you just have, few thousand users in a world that just need that payment channel very acutely. So you don't care about the rest of the churn. You just care about being able to, get that, that TAM that you, for those high value users that you care about. So those are kind of the extremes. So you kind of have to understand on what part of that spectrum you are, and like really understand how to acutely solve that user problem. So especially whenever you do deep tech, you often run into people who have this utopian view of what their product could or should be. And that's not really usually the way to make a good product. The good way to make a good product is to ship uncomfortably early, see what you can learn on what you're grabbing from your users, and iterate from there. Like if you think of the spectrum of like, is how baked and how done an application is, especially like blockchain and AI, people wait till they get to basically 11. They get it absolutely perfect, and then they get audited, and they get whatever, and then they finally ship, but it oftentimes doesn't reach the user. When really you should be shipping it basically at 2, and your first iteration should be just like, does anybody care about this segment at all? Because the idea being, if you really care, if somebody's really going to care like enough to be sticky, they're going to care enough about that 2 out of 10 version of your application. And then you can just, as you get to 10, you just get more and more people, and then you expand more and more to the edge of those people who really care. But if you don't have anybody in that 2-level app that really care, that says something about your application, and maybe you should do some iteration and find what parts they care, and then kind of build your application from there.